Welcome to coverage of the 2022 Tim Selinske U.S. Masters Disc Golf Championships from Quad Cities. It's Grant Zellner and Jennifer Allen, bringing you coverage of the MP40 division at this PDGA major. Thanks to Ace Run Pro for producing, Gatekeeper Media for graphics, and Nick Stock for shooting today's round. Let's hear from our players today.
Brad Schick, PDGA 7992, second time at the Tim Selinske and defending champ. So here we go.
My name is Chris Sprague, 16425. I'm the designer and builder of Camden 2. Played Tim Selinske 3 or 4 times. Love this event.
Patrick Brown, numbers 25713, 4-time champion of the Tim Selinske U.S. Masters. Rest in peace, Tim.
I'm Joe Rovere, 30306. This is my second time playing the Tim Selinske's tournament, and my last time was in Des Moines. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, and I took second. Barry took first. And I'm very excited to be here. This place is amazing.
We jump straight now to hole number 1, a par 3 at 325 feet, playing down the ravine and back up the other side. Jennifer, you played this exact same layout, so you know what the players have in store for them.
Yeah, very tricky course, challenges on every hole, whether that's hitting the gap or keeping your disc on away from rolling.
Welcome once again to the 2022 Tim Selinske United States Masters Disc Golf Championship. This is our 2:10 tee time. First on the tee from Galena, Ohio is Brad Schick.
Love seeing Wilbur Wallace off the tee, announcing everybody.
So needing to hit that
Next
first
up,
gap,
the
he
Rock
does,
Island
but catches the
Sprague.
next tree before the creek.
This is Chris Sprague, designer of the Camden 2 course. So we
Yeah,
get to
no
see the
pressure.
designer. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, that's gotta be tough.
Yeah, Chris.
And how often does that happen?
Do
I
it.
don't
The
know.
designer of a course gets to play a major, and it looks like he's thrown that hole a time or two. Beautiful drive.
Very quickly now, Patrick Brown on the tee pad. Wilbur practically announcing each player while the disc is in flight from the player before, so we'll just go ahead and watch Patrick.
From Arvada, Colorado,
Yeah, that's a great safe
Joe
shot.
Rovere.
Just a little bit right of the basket, probably right inside circle 1.
Joe Rovere now already on the tee pad, ready to go.
Our reigning MP40 world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a good flight as well, just a little low. Going to get some ground action though, or look for birdie.
Now to Brad here, caught a tree trunk there off the tee pad, so he's down by the bridge at the bottom.
Yeah, he caught the tree just before the ravine, and it kicked him down in there, and it's a pretty steep climb back up.
Joe Rovere now looks like about circle's edge, maybe a step inside or so. Just short.
Almost that same identical putt. Let's see if Patrick can make it. Corrects that low putt from the previous and gets it in.
Brad Schick now, this to save a par at the opener. Solid putt there.
Great par save.
And now Chris Sprague.
Yeah, Yeah, just a hair short as well. He's so tall. I forget that until I get near him. So Patrick getting the solo birdie on hole 1. Here we are on hole number 2. This is a 225-foot par 3. You're going to take a line either on the right side of that thick tree in the middle or just a straight shot over those tree bases there. You want to make sure not to have too much speed on the disc because this is a very sharp drop off right over the basket.
Yeah, steeply downhill after the basket to a second ravine. There are basically 2 ravines that parallel each other through this park. We'll be playing back and forth across them all afternoon long. Patrick first to tee. And quickly Brad Schick now up and over those monoliths.
Yeah, that's a beautiful line because that's going to fade softly and hopefully land without much angle so you don't have any rollaways on this green.
Chris now needs a little height here or just
right between
nestles
them.
right between them. Nice job there for Chris. And finally Joe.
All of these guys took that nice straight line. I saw, oh, wow, that had to be so close. That looked perfect. I was kind of surprised all of the hyzer lines I saw from the FPO40 players, but the men taking the nice straight line at the basket.
Patrick got caught up a little bit en route to the basket, so a long look here from circle 2. Off the front of the cage.
Yeah, stays close. And as I talked about, if you go over, that was an ace run. You can see how far it went down. Luckily, that putt that was just a hair short does stick right there and doesn't roll back to him.
Chris gets that to stay in the chains and fall to the bottom of the basket. So Chris now on the board with a birdie. Mr. Brad Schick also with a birdie on the board. Patrick and Joe cleaning up some pars here. Props to our cameraman, Nick Stock, working this round solo.
Yeah, he's having to run all over the place, so great job, Nick.
He's way out of position. Like,
he's gonna have to force it though.
I don't think he can.
Think it's even possible?
It's in the impossible range.
The way Worlds ended last year, you couldn't have wrote that in a book.
After the initial reaction, I had to process.
If you don't even think it's a sport, watching this moment has to get you pumped up.
He's going to need the shot of the century.
I could sense something was about to happen.
We're to the third now at Camden 2, a par 3 at 363 feet. Narrow gap off the tee pad, then things open up just a little bit. Sort of an S-shaped fairway here, bending over to the right and then finishing sort of tailing back to the left.
Yeah, and this fairway does slope downhill, so 363 feet comes up kind of quick. As long as you hit those first, the gap here. I've seen both left and right of that middle tree, depending if you want to try to ride a little bit more of a straighter line or not. Brad gets some great turn and looks like it's going to finish back left perfectly. Beautiful drive.
Most of the holes here on Camden 2 are anything but flat, even the ones that look flat, like this one here at the third. It's going to have some undulations, some soft sort of side hill going on here and there. These discs, as they come into this green, going to find that the green's sloping down and away a little bit.
Chris keeping that close, and hopefully it hyzered back as well.
Patrick Brown now off the tee.
And I would say a majority of these holes have beautiful lines. It's a beautiful course, and you get to see all this nice green and the leaves and the grass. But if you miss your line or get an unfortunate kick or roll, the rough is very rough. And so the majority goal for most is keeping it in the fairway and letting those birdies happen as they will.
Good pump there from Joe off the tee pad. Looks like he threw a slower disc and threw it harder. We'll see if he's got a window for a putt, as Patrick has nothing to do but pitch back out, and now this is Patrick's third.
Oh, that looks like a good bid to try to save it, though. Yeah, and I think that is definitely an advantage, you know, having the downhill slope, being able to throw a slower speed disc to kind of ride the hill and maybe not get quite as bad of a kick if you do miss your line.
Patrick off the side of the chains there in his putt. Brad in for the birdie. Great drive from Brad. Greater drive from Joe.
Yeah, almost a couple of tap-ins. Yeah, that's
wow.
If you hit the line, like I said, the lines are cut perfectly. Chris did a great job. You're rewarded for hitting them.
And now Chris. 3 birdies here at the third. Unfortunate the double bogey for Patrick, illustrating your point from a moment ago, Jen, perfectly. If you hit your line, you will typically be rewarded here at Camden 2. If you miss your line, it becomes a slog.
Yeah, par's hard to get for sure. Here's another one that's par is hard to get. This is a par 3, 500 feet long. You want to hit this gap fading to the right over this deep ravine here. I'm curious to see if the men, they probably will not lay up like the women do, and most of the drives will probably end up around this area, giving them a look to possibly get birdie. I know for the women, we were okay with a par was 4.
A par or a bogey, yeah.
Yeah.
This hole probably a little bit off on its par. For the men, I'm going to guess it's more of a maybe sort of a par 3.5.
Yeah, I'm curious. I didn't walk with any of the men to see how differently they played it than the women. But to keep it clean and safe, I think even as, you know, these men throw, even though they can maybe throw a little bit further, you're risking a lot by trying to be aggressive. I feel like any hole that the next car can tee off of the green or off of the tee before people are putting off the green, it shouldn't be a par 3. And that was the case on this hole.
Jennifer, this is probably a good time to bring up, there's actually very, very little out of bounds here at Camden 2. These creeks and ravines are not out of bounds, so players will be playing from down in the creek. There's actually not very much water in any of these creeks as well. So very, very little out of bounds. We'll point out the couple of instances when we get to it. So these players, if they go off into that ravine, their reward is having to go down there and find their disc and keep playing.
Yeah, and I kind of like that approach. I mean, if you do get offline, you're punished usually enough by just the extra trees or the tall foliage or whatever. So I think it is very fair. However, some of these ravines were partially dangerous. You know, it was a little risky getting down to some of our lies. So that is the other kind of debate on that, if they should be OB or not, especially when bad weather comes in.
Patrick there with his bid from circle 2 up and over the basket. Now Brad getting a little metal. Ooh.
Yeah, a little soft bid. He was lucky. I believe that stayed. I saw so many rollaways this week on this green.
So Patrick unfortunately takes a second double in a row here.
And they add up so quickly. And you know, if you're off just a little bit, you know, causing these mishaps and bogeys and double bogeys, you're not getting quite as many of those opportunities for the easy birdies. Like this front 9 is very demanding. The whole course is, but I feel like the first 6-7 holes, bogeys sneak up quick.
No surprise, no birdies on the day at the 4th. So par, a very solid score at the par 3 4th. Now on to a par 4. The 5th is 550 feet. You're going to see a downed tree here, just a big log right here as we fly over. That's a great sort of aiming point to try to get up and over that log. Think of it as a tennis net or something. And then you see this narrow approach to the basket with one of those few OBs running all the way up the right-hand side.
Yeah, and so close to the basket.
Mm-hmm. Just a pace or two.
A lot of us did like a little soft forehand or turnover approach along that right side OB line, kind of by the tree or trying to get just over that tree. Really breaking this hole up was the easiest way. And if you hit those spots, I mean, this is definitely a birdieable hole. But anything that hyzers off or gets a bad kick to the left, it's almost worse than kicking OB. Like, I think that if you go OB on the right side, you're at least on the open side of the fairway. That left side is thick and rough. And Brad does get over there, so I'm curious to see if he'll be able to find a line out.
We saw Joe with a good solid bid right up the middle, and he landed in the neighborhood of that log. Looks like Patrick veered off a little bit to the left at the end of the flight, but I think he got an awful lot of the flight, so he might have a better angle here at the end. Meanwhile, Chris early.
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, he was even kind of at the big tree in the middle of the fairway, but that's almost too far left. Like, you really went over here where Joe is. Really pushing the line of OB along that right side is about the only place to kind of be aggressive.
Joe catching the one and only guardian tree in the middle of the narrow fairway there as you approach the basket. Now we're quickly over to Brad. He's well off to the left, as you mentioned, Jen.
Yeah, and he only has even further left to go. Like, that's all you have. And I'm really I hate to say glad that someone got over there to see. But and Nick did a great job of showing just how bad. Patrick's not even really that far over there, and he was just lucky enough to kind of be in an area that he was able to hyzer out. Like, that left side, whew, it was brutal.
So after the best drive of the group, Joe now, this long third.
Oh, such a great bid.
Misses out on the birdie. Now Brad.
And that is a huge birdie from where he was. Wow. It makes me want to count the strokes. I'm like,
I know, right? Chris, now this is his third. He basically played up the adjacent fairway on the next hole.
Yeah.
So now he's cutting through from there.
Ooh, I hope that sit.
It looks, yes, it did. He's in bounds just barely.
I think he used one of those trees as a backstop to stay in bounds. Oh, those are the huge nubs. I'm not a huge fan of these baskets. They're very deep pan and a low putt. It's real easy to kind of catch those nubs, and you see so many of them fly backwards out at you.
Right. So Chris saves a par from the wrong fairway. That's pretty great. Love the creativity that you have to employ from time to time out on the golf course.
Yeah, and a lot of these holes, the fairways do kind of run parallel, just like this next hole is going to run right next to this one. But there's so many trees, you really don't see the other players. All right, hole number 6. This is 350 feet, par 3. Like I said, this is going to run right alongside hole 5 is there to the right. If you take this high turnover shot, which is just a little bit left of where the drone is flying, and then catch any of those trees and get a kick, that hill down to the left, quickly your disc is going to catch up speed. We're going to make it over here to the right side where we find the basket, just on a little bit of a slope of a green. There is a very tight inside route as well that kind of is more of a straight line or a hyzer route, but the gap is really small.
Brad going with the power forehand out to the left, fading up to the right.
Yeah, and the forehand shot is able to stay lower and not get that really tough kick that the right hand backhand throw like this has to go a little higher.
Look at this. Go ahead. Look at this.
Chris
Excellent shot there.
Chris
All the
able
card
to
mates.
find the gap.
All the card mates chanting "go in" there at the end of that flight. Now Joe Rovere off the tee here at the 6th. Similar line to Chris's.
Yeah, so you see how they have to keep it just a little bit higher to hold the line and get the turn all the way over to the basket where the forehand can go a little bit lower. And that's a safer shot.
Patrick catches one lone scraggly branch there. Leaves him with a long bid here.
And it just takes one tree out here amongst the millions. Couple of tap-in birdies, if that's the next closest. Holy cow.
Wow, look at this.
Awesome drives.
Patrick in with the par save here. And finally Chris dropping in the birdie at 350 feet through the woods. That's impressive.
That's 3 perfectly executed shots.
We move on now to the 7th, playing straight uphill, 250 feet. This hole begins at the base of one of the ravines we've been talking about. You see a couple of guardian trees and a little bit of logs and things like that piled here in the middle, but the gist of this hole is you throw something that you can trust to fly straight and then land softly on a very steep portion of this hillside.
Yeah, you got to hit the field goal there, actually twice. So you're going to throw through the whole football field. You want to make through both of them. There is a hyzer route as well as that forehand on the left side. Brad S-ing up and landing. You can see how his disc landed so flat, and that's the safest thing to do. You want to hit the angle of the hillside to prevent any rollaways. Looks like Chris is going with a putter. Get a nice soft glide.
Oh, catches that rock there next to all of the logs I mentioned before.
And those logs are, can help you if they're going to stop a rollaway, but you can also, you want to keep this kind of low, and they can definitely catch a good drive that's on its way to the basket as well.
Yeah, they force you to think about them more than anything. I know that I definitely think about them more than I'd like to, and it forces me to throw a little more nose up than I want, but that's part of the challenge, as Joe has to putt straight down the hill.
Wow.
Great job there. Wow.
It's like there wasn't even a cliff behind him.
Right.
There we go. Patrick getting to get that birdie going.
He's needed that after those back-to-back double bogeys earlier in this opening 9, so good job for Patrick there, getting things back on track, hopefully. Now, Chris, he was putting left-handed there.
He has putted left-handed the whole time. I was really confused, and I wasn't saying anything because I thought it was just me.
Interesting.
Okay, hole 8. This is 500 feet. You're going to go left, right, or right over that little stump there, and you're going to try to get your disc to hyzer back a little bit around these trees, landing somewhere in that sunset area there, because the next shot you're going to have to get through all of these guardian trees. Basket's tucked over there to the left. Again, a little bit of a sloping green, even though it doesn't show it, and any kind of rough kicks can take you down the ravine on the right side.
This is another really long par 3 here at Camden. Brad trying to get a lot on that tee shot, pulls it just a little bit. We'll have to wait and see where that disc deflected. Now here's Chris, who, as we mentioned a moment ago, was putting left-handed, now driving with a right-hand backhand. So your eyes are not playing tricks on you.
I've played with an FPO player as well who putted left-handed for short putts. And I think, kind of like me throwing in turbo putts. I never practiced turbo putts, but it makes me focus, on those short ones. So if I guess you're a little ambidextrous and can, go right or left-handed there putting, maybe it makes him focus on the shorter putts.
Yeah, whatever's consistent for him. Just because it would be inconsistent for the rest of us, it's consistent for him. So he can go with it, no doubt about it. Here's where Brad ended up after going left straight off the tee.
Yeah, and this does run along, I believe that's hole 3 on the left side. So sometimes you can get a bad enough kick that it kind of turns good and gets you to an open fairway.
And
you can see the short pin placement there to the right. And a lot of these holes, that was where a lot of the FPO40 players were kind of aiming for, because it's usually a little bit more of an open area.
Right.
Brad being able to kind of hit that hyzer line back in. But it also gave us a good, I think, kind of mental understanding of where the distances and stuff were, because we could look on the tee side and see the shorter placement distance was exactly this. So it's kind of helpful gauging things.
Yeah, often when I follow along with groups preparing to do commentary, I'll carry a rangefinder with me. I carried it for the first part of the first round I followed. I didn't carry it again the rest of the week here at Camden 2 because I didn't need it. It just didn't help very much when it came to trying to figure out these lines and these pathways that players are finding.
Off the fairway and you couldn't see anything.
Right. Yeah, sure.
then you still needed it. I did, at least. Oh, good bid by Patrick. Had the height, just needed a little bit more distance on it.
Par good score here at the 8th. It's a hole that's playing a half stroke over par, so it's playing to a 3.5 average.
Yeah, like I said, the front nine, I really think, mentally you have to prep yourself to try to shoot par and not really be aggressive. Just kind of try to stay safe, get through all of these really difficult lines with that was kind of mean. With very difficult pars, The pars were really birdies, so.
Yep. No doubt about it there. So 0 birdies on the day. I'll go ahead and reveal that here as our players finish up here at the 8th. Not a single birdie carded here.
Is that mean for me to say it was nice to see they struggled with this?
No, I don't think it's mean at all. No, I think it's insightful. Because
I mean, sometimes you feel like as the FPO40 player, FPO player, like you're curious if the men struggle with the same areas that you do, and we did.
Chris Tatar looking confident early. That is now 8 straight birdies.
Chris has nothing to lose.
Tatar from the circle's edge for birdie. Punctuation mark on a dominant week in Emporia. Chris Tatar, for the first time since 2004, a European champion at the Worlds.
Here we are at the 9th, a par 3 at 250 feet. This course kind of has a front 8 and a back 10. So we're very near the tee box of hole number 1, playing in a new direction, up and over several undulating hills. There's a narrow but present fairway here right up the gut to this basket, which is perched on the leading edge of a downslope and a very significant one. So this is a shot that requires a lot of touch.
Yeah, slower speed disc that's going to land nice and flat up on the top is what most of us are looking for. I did see a few hyzer shots kind of sneak through that right side, and they were able to kind of stay up there a little bit more, whereas if you hit the gap correctly with the turnover on the left and have a little too much height on it, you're going all the way down the cliff.
It's a great run there from Patrick. He hits that very last tree near the basket, which isn't a bad target. Meanwhile, Chris,
and you see he was and he was okay with it as long as that just set down and you didn't get that huge kick left or right. These off the fairway next lies can be brutal. So hitting a tree is acceptable. The kick is sometimes not.
Patrick needed this to flip a lot more than it did. It's going to hyzer off to the left. We'll see what kind of a look he has from over there. There are putts from over there on the left. Meanwhile, Chris quickly up.
Left side is okay if you get far enough down, and it looks like he did, but he's not really pitching that out because he didn't have a line. He's pitching that out, I think, more because it's not really worth it. If he misses that basket or hits one little leaf that kicks him, you're looking at a bogey for sure.
Oh, and now you're seeing why. We just saw why you have to worry a lot about the slope here on the 9th.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than going further away from your previous lie. And that's where, downhill putts are scary, but uphill putts are just as scary because you leave that just a hair short like Chris did, and that's what you're going to get every time. Brad being confident and hitting that nice birdie putt.
And there's Joe drop in.
Joe's tap in. So we had a rough, tough stretch of kind of long par 3s. Now we're hitting the stretch of shorter holes. So the next few holes on our back 9 are going to be a lot shorter and some good ace runs hopefully by this card.
Yeah, they're going to give us some definite opportunities for these players to make up for a couple of mistakes here at the end of the front 9. Get a quick look at where everybody stands as of the halfway mark of this opening round of the 2022 Tim Selinske U.S. Master Disc Golf Championship. A lot of players that we're not following on this featured car are vying for a chance for us to get to see them in round 2 coverage and beyond. In the meantime, make sure you like, follow, subscribe with the PDGA on YouTube and other social channels. We'll be back with more coverage of this 2022 PDGA Major. Stay tuned.